Welcome to another edition of From the Front Lines, where we discuss both the day-to-day and one-of-a-kind issues facing real estate managers. Today I'm here with Robert Fuller, CPM and Senior Facilities Manager at CBRE. Welcome, Robert. First, what exactly are data centers? Can you share a little bit more about that property type?
First of all, thank you, Suzanne, for this opportunity to share information about data centers, an industry that I am extremely passionate about. So what are data centers? Well, in very basic terms, data centers can be a room, closet, or just a home office that contains a computer and the supporting peripheral equipment, such as printers, storage devices, etc., that a sole proprietor could use in their business, a student could use for achieving their education, or even a large Fortune 500 corporation.
And so I'd imagine there are some special considerations around managing this type of property. Could you speak about what those might require in terms of the building infrastructure and building systems?
Well, at the heart of managing a data center is ensuring that continuous electrical power and HVAC cooling is continuously provided. It's what we in the industry call 100% uptime. Simple enough. However, since the typical data center consists of highly technical equipment and building systems, this can be a challenging aspect of the facility manager's role. Some of those considerations would be: know your assets, inventory them. This highly technical equipment consists of uninterruptible power supply systems, generators, switch gears, chillers, computer room, air conditioning units. You also should know your property, know the floor plan, the layout, and of course, the life safety plans. Having familiarity with regulatory agencies, in particular the state, wherever your data center is located, the State Environmental Protection Agency is paramount in considering the management of a data center, because data centers, because of the type of chemicals that they, for lack of a better word, spew into the atmosphere, they're highly regulated by the Environmental Protection Agency. So there are extreme environmental considerations in managing a data center.
I see. And so, what about in terms of staffing? What are the special considerations, requirements, and advice that you might have for those who manage data centers in terms of staffing and property management responsibilities?
First of all, understand the requirements of the staffing levels for the type of data center that you manage. And there are all types of data centers, some of which include, we hear about the cloud, we hear about edge computing, we hear about co-locations. They're all different types of data centers that require basically a set of skills that each of the engineers and facility managers and administrative staff require. But once you know the levels of your staff for the particular data center that you manage, always know who the subject matter experts are on your staff, because there will be times when you will need their expertise depending on the project, the issue, or the challenge that you may be confronted with while managing the data center.
And so, what do you think the future of data centers looks like? I can imagine it's only going to be a growing asset class.
Exactly. What I envision is that data centers will no longer be considered a niche class of real estate, meaning that they will receive just as much attention as office buildings, retail properties, multifamily, industrial properties. I think it's clearly moving in that direction. So that's what I envision the future of data centers. It's of course rooted in technology. So I believe it will always be attractive to a young workforce that is embracing technology. Let's face it, we have a whole generation or generations that have grown up with the use of technology. So working in the data center environment, I think will be very attractive to them. So I'm very optimistic about the future and long-term sustainability of data centers.
do they tend to be standalone assets or they have a part of a mixed use property? Or what do you typically see or what do you predict we might see in the future?
That's interesting. I'm constantly reading about data centers and where they're headed and the primary markets of data centers. They are like other assets. They are clustered together, although you do have data centers that stand alone, that are what we call dedicated data centers that could be in the middle of nowhere. There is a particular data center located in the Midwest, and it is comprised of over 1 million square feet. But more importantly, data centers are measured or identified by the amount of power that they can accommodate for the owner or user of the data center. And it's measured in megawatts, where an office building or industrial property might be measured in square feet. So the amount of megawatts of power is what data center operators consider. And so in the past, when data centers were initially introduced, they were standalone for the most part, but more and more, you're starting to see data centers come together in clusters. And one of those clusters is the Northern Virginia market, the Dallas, Fort Worth area, and even New York, New Jersey, where a number of data centers have come together and operate in a particular area. However, you are starting to see data centers being incorporated into mixed use environments. And so there is a, a desire for a younger workforce to want to not have these long commutes and work, live, and play is what they call it in the same environment. So now you're starting to see a data center, a multifamily property, retail, all within the same geographical area.
That's so interesting. And who are the typical owners and tenants, or is there a typical ownership type, or is it kind of all over the map?
No, there is a typical type of owner, and it's really major real estate operators. What you're starting to see is a lot of traditional owners of real estate, whether it was office building, multifamily, retail, industrial property owners, they're moving into data centers. At the heart of what they do, it's about real estate and making a profit on their investment. So if they see a good return in data centers, and they do, then they're moving into the data center world. Some of the largest owners of real estate, particularly office buildings, are now purchasing either standalone data centers or entire data center operators and incorporating them into their portfolio of assets.
Wow, so it's really an asset class to stay on top of. Thank you so much for your time, Robert. This is really interesting to hear about data centers.
Thank you, Suzanne. Appreciate the opportunity and sharing more information about data centers.
Thanks so much. Visit irem.org for more knowledge to take on real estate management's most dynamic challenges. That's www.irem.org.